Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, for those who wish to watch the event in English or Spanish, the links for the different languages are in the chat. I am Alexandre Araújo Godeiro Carlos, Alexandre Bodelhos, Deputy Superintendent of the Office of the Superintendent for Service Regulations of the National Water and Sanitation Agency, ANA. And it's with great pleasure that we begin the sixth and last special session of the Brazil Water Week, the most important international event on water held in this country. Brazil Water Week starts on next Monday. It will be held between the 23rd and 27th of May on an exclusive online interactive platform. The website for registrations is on the chat of the line of this event. There's 5 days of content, 20 sessions with specialists from Brazil and 19 other countries. The content will be made available for those who have registered to be accessed by for 90 days after the end of the event. Please log on to the website of the event. The link is in the description to register. And here in the ABES channel, you can watch the other special sessions, including this one, held in this month. This special session has as its theme universal access to services of sanitation services, supply of water and sanitation, but focused especially on the sanitation component. I received for the keynote remarks the National President of ABES, the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering, which is the host of the Brazil Water Week, Alceu, Guérios, Bittencourt, and Gustavo Mendez, leading specialist in water and basic sanitation for the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB. Alceu, the floor is yours. Thank you, Alexandre. Good morning to everyone who participates in our last special session before the beginning of the Brazil Water Week on Monday. I would like to thank the National Water and Sanitation Agency, in particular Alexandre Bodelho, the IDB as well, and our representative Gustavo Mendez, and also all our participants who will present in our session next, and as well as the international participants, Jepes and Maria Mena, and my Brazilian colleagues, Coutinho and Fabio Bas. The issue of universal access has been very present in the discussions here in Brazil, in our regulatory framework. And it's very important that we see successful experiences and discuss the concept of universal access. And universal access means meeting the needs of those who have the most difficulty in getting their needs met. So taking care so that we are able to provide at accessible cost for the people with the lowest incomes, and discuss how to meet the needs of people in rural areas and isolated communities that may otherwise be excluded for economic reasons from the solutions and the expansion of systems for universalization, and also the reality throughout our continent, our entire continent basically, and here in Brazil certainly is the case, of the people who live in undocumented territories like favelas, as to what is universal access and what is adequate service, and providing adequate service for people who live in inadequate housing situations. These are the major issues of universal access beyond a proper institutional balance, economic issues, and well-regulated contracts. And those are the issues, and that in their totality can help us to have adequate service for everyone. So this is our great call to arms in Brazil Water Week, having the discussion of the meeting SDG number 6, Universal Access. For us here in Brazil, it is a very appropriate session. I think will be very successful and useful for everyone. Thank you all once again, and I wish you all an excellent meeting. Thank you. So now I will pass the floor to Gustavo to make his initial remarks. But first, I would like to say that we have here with us Leon Arturo Yepes, who is the manager of wastewater management of the Medellin in Colombia, and Maria Mena, the technical coordination of the sanitation division of Montevideo, Uruguay, Fabio Coutinho, director of the Pernambuco sanitation company, and Fabio Alexander Passo, general manager of the Metropolitan Board of Directors for operations of the sanitation company of Paraná, Sanepar. Welcome to you all. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And now we will hear the remarks of Gustavo Mendez, leading specialist in water and sanitation of the Inter-American Development Bank. IDB. Thank you very much indeed, Alexandre, for your remarks. I would like to first greet all of our colleagues who are watching us here in this very important session to share experiences about how to meet the requirements for universal access to the services of water and sanitation, but in this case focused especially on sanitation. And we have speakers of extremely high-level speakers, and it will be very, very interesting to hear their experiences. For the Inter-American Development Bank, it is a pleasure to support this initiative and participate in this very special session as a prelude to the Brazil Water Week 2022, which, as I said, is an event that is the most important international event of the sanitation sector here in Brazil. This special session and this Brazil Water Week comes at a very important time that we are for the sanitation sector in Brazil. In Brazil, sanitation is the definition of water, drainage, wastewater, and solid waste. So in this legal framework, things are mobilizing and we're starting to undergo a transformative process in the sanitation sector. In this context, we have two important factors in the law, among others. One is the creation of the national regulator, which is the responsibility of the National Agency for Water and Sanitation. It's a great challenge that we have the pleasure of supporting in the development of their tasks and responsibilities, which I think will be key for the success of the new national regulation on sanitation. Having a regulatory agency that has credibility and competence with the technical capacity and the authority and transparency is essential for the success of the objectives of the new regulatory framework. Another important factor is the regional organization of the services, which we talk about economic and financial abilities, but the message that I see behind this regionalization is that we are guaranteeing services for the poorest areas. This way of combining filet mignon with bones is very important to create an inclusive sector so that the poorest populations can also have access to the services of the basic sanitation. There's no point in having a legal framework that is excluding people. So the topic of regionalization is very essential. In Brazil, we still have more than 100 million people who do not have access to sanitation and water, clean water. So the challenge is a very significant one. To meet the goals of the National Plan for Basic Sanitation, you need to invest more or less $6 to $8 billion per year. So it will be necessary not just the investments in the public sector, but also investments from the private sector as well. We are very, very happy to participate and support this process of transformation, and we are available to continue to provide that support. Thank you very much indeed.
Obrigado, Gustavo.
Thank you, Gustavo. I would like to thank the Alceu and Gustavo for their comments and their presentations. I would also like to bring here on behalf of the National Agency for Water and Basic Sanitation, extend our welcome to everybody and say how happy we are to be here in this event, and which is so important to the water and sanitation sector. And I'd like to say that we work very hard and we have a focus on the fulfilling of our regulatory agenda that provides the addition of the publication of five guidelines that were five additional guidelines in addition to the two that were already published to fulfill our legal mission that was given us by the alteration of the national sanitation law to be able to create and then monitor the adoption of the guidelines and reference standards by the state and local regulatory agencies. That's the role of ANA. So Gustavo, thank you very much for what you said. And we will count on the support of Brazilian society in this development, and with the support of the industry association, the ABES in particular, which is our host today. And we also count on the support of consultancy from the IDB in developing these guidelines. So without further ado, I don't know if Alceu wants to make some final remarks. Alceu, I'll pass the floor to you. We will say goodbye. You will continue to be with us. Well, feel free. Thank you very much, Alexandre. Just to wish you all once again a very prosperous and useful session. I will say goodbye. Thank you. I wish you all an excellent activity. Thank you to all the participants. So now I've asked Gustavo to make his presentation and continue to watch this and to deal with the issues that he will raise with regards to access to sanitation, sewage treatment, and the concepts of effectiveness and the conceptual aspects and the issue of universal access, and finally the overview from the perspective of Latin America. Gustavo, the floor is yours.
Muito obrigado, Alexandre. Vou compartilhar aqui
Thank you very much, Alexandre.
uma apresentação, okay?
Thank you, Alexandre. Now I'll share my screen.
Estão vendo?
Let me know if you can see it.
Perfecto. ¿Sí? ¿La ven?
Ok, vemos sim.
Okay. Entonces, voy a hacer una presentación sobre tres temas importantes.
I'll make a presentation about three important topics. The first one has to do with the effectiveness in the development of the sector and what are the factors that lead to success so that we can effectively be successful when developing the sector, and how this effectiveness in this sector is threatened by the climate change and how we can create climate resilience to sustain the development of the sector. And in this context, how technological innovation plays a very important role in helping us reaching our universal access objectives. And I also talk about wastewater. When it comes to the sector development, why do the countries that are successful in the water and sanitation sector have enjoyed the success? And within our institution, we understand that there are 5 fundamental aspects. The first one is the priority given by the sector given to the sector by the governments. And over the last few decades, we've seen that the sector has been prioritized by the governments. And we've noticed this happening in Peru, in Mexico, in Colombia, and many other countries where we understand that investing in the sector is essential for the productivity and competitiveness of the country. In Brazil in 2013, there was a survey that noted that almost 15 million people were suffering from diarrhea and vomit. And we noticed that many of these people had to be hospitalized, leading to a big loss in the economy. So if we invest in the sector, we avoid losses in productivity. The second important factor is intervention, or the full focus of our interventions. So we are saying here that not all sectors invested in these services, but we have also strengthened our institutions. So the entities responsible for the infrastructure in the sector are very effective, helping us provide quality services at a reasonable price, thus avoiding barriers that normally happen and also avoiding porous sectors having no access to this service. The third important pillar is having social participation, social engagement. Successful countries, they have really invested in this area as well. Another important factor is intersectoriality. Some people have access to water 24/7 and also access to wastewater services and drainage services. However, some people do not have access to all of this. In this case, we need to have multi-sectoral solutions so that we can improve the quality of life of these people, especially for those who are underserved, those that do not have access to wastewater services, and also those who have other problems. This population can definitely benefit from all of these services. So the impact is greater and is also possible to the population to improve the quality of life of this population. We also have to have a long-term vision. We see countries that have long-term master plans and that have been able to really implement universal access. Today, we have some challenges in the management area, and according to our historical rate, we can see that we cannot keep working in the traditional way we have been working. We need to incorporate innovation. These 5 factors, according to our experience, have led these cities, the most successful cities in universal access, to be extremely successful. We like to talk about what we've been doing with Sabesp to improve the wastewater services in the metropolitan region in São Paulo. We have created a master plan. We have also allocated a lot of resources, almost $3 billion. We have invested in the development of infrastructure and in the creation of networks. And the network today is very, very large and long. And we have also strengthened the different institutions as well, such as Sabesp and also other regulatory agencies. This was very important. And as we strengthened these institutions, we have been able to see a lot of success. We have already been able to execute the first and second stages. 8.5 million people have been included in the system, and in the second stage we had 5 million people being included, and now in the fourth stage we will have approximately 3.7 million people being benefited because of this collaboration across institutions. So the secret is continuous investment throughout time. If we are able to effectively implement these services, we also need to take into consideration climate change to improve the sustainability of these services. As I mentioned, climate change is here. There is no way around it. And climate change appears in the form of flooding and droughts, and that's why we need to work on our climate resilience. And what are the concepts that the bank support which determine our success and improve climate resilience to cities, and therefore creates more sustainability to the water and wastewater services? First, we need to recover degraded systems, preserve and protect these systems and ecosystems. When it comes to flooding, for example, we need to create ecosystems that work as a buffer, increasing the time of retention. Another important point is to create information and warning systems to the population in a timely and reliable manner. With the technological innovations that we have today, we have apps that can be used by the population so that they can be warned about possible problems. We also need to improve and protect structures and ecosystems and the public policies and management instruments. There is the Varzias program in the Tietê River in São Paulo, which works on the recovery of ecosystems. We have been able to create settlements, new settlements to the populations that were living in this area. We have also created 8 kilometers of drainage channels. We have also created protection measures so that we could help our population. And now we know that the population also needs to learn how to deal with these ecosystems in a sustainable way, in such a way that they become the guardians of the ecosystem against organizations that degrade the ecosystems that protect them. So we have been creating psychopaths and also other urban systems to help in this protection. And we have also created a management plan in the environmental protection area. Well, in addition to working on infrastructure, we have also been strengthening the water crisis management system in the state of São Paulo. We've had a major water crisis in the past few years, and in São Paulo, one of the major problems that there is that they have to share water with other states, and the state was not ready to deal with this water crisis. But São Paulo has been able to really win this battle. And we know that we need to share now with Latin America as a whole all the strategies that have been implemented successfully in São Paulo. All of the instruments for water resource management were not ready at the time, and that's why we needed to strengthen our public policies to deal with water resources better and also to improve the water supply system. Sabesp has created a lot of new strategies to fight this water crisis and water shortage. So once again, it's very important for us to spread this knowledge. Finally, innovation. How can we do more with less? Today, for us to fulfill the SDG 6, we would need $18 billion by 2030, and it's impossible to get to this number. We need to have more effective solutions in the shorter term and at a lower cost. So we need to think about out of the box and find solutions. In this context, we need to have open innovation because it is one of the most effective ways for us to fulfill this objective. So Sabesp has worked on a pitch, which is an open process where they have prepared the main challenges that they have when providing services in different fronts, such as commercial area and other areas. Once they have formulated the challenges, they have created a call, an invitation to have the participation of other organizations to help them solve their challenges. There was a selection process, and after the selection process, 10 startups have presented a pilot product. Out of those, 2 of them were selected, and now the solutions are being scaled. The greatest challenge to incorporate the innovation is the procurement process. Many times there is one solution to reduce losses, and we need to hire the startup straight away, directly, but the procurement process can be a hurdle in this case. This is something that normally happens when it comes to public procurement. We have some examples that happened in CASB as well. 90% of physical losses are invisible leaks that drain and kill and weaken our finances and the finances of companies. But today, with new technologies, invisible leaks can be detected through artificial intelligence. 7 pilot projects were able to reduce losses by 5%, which means 10 million cubic meters per year. And this also impacts our costs. And all of this was done through artificial intelligence. Well, now on to lessons learned. We need to improve our management. We need to have better management. We need to really drive a culture of change. We also need to work with pilots. We need to have successful pilots because this helps us make changes. And of course, then when you have innovation, we also have risks, but we also need to learn from our mistakes, which makes our organization stronger and more resilient. Thank you so much for your time, and now I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Gustavo. Your presentation has been amazing, as always. Now I will pass the floor to Maria Mana, the technical coordinator of the sanitation division of Montevideo, and she will be talking about their experience in Uruguay. Maria, the floor is yours.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Espero que esté bien allí la presentación y muchísimas gracias a los organizadores por esta oportunidad. No solo de presentar, pero sí de participar y escuchar experiencias exitosas, compartir lo que estamos todo el día trabajando en esto. Bueno, voy a tratar de presentar un poquito alineado con la temática del día, 3 aspectos interesantes de que pensamos que son buenos compartir, condiciones aprendidas, aciertos y errores, con relación al saneamiento y el conexionado efectivo y la universalización del servicio aquí en Montevideo, Uruguay, que es donde yo trabajo. Vamos a hablar un poquito sobre la extensión de redes, cómo estos planes tienen que llegar a toda la población y abarcar toda el área. Pero no solamente eso, también cómo el conexionado efectivo, una vez que estas redes están instaladas, la población haga uso del servicio, que haga el adecuamiento de su sanitaria interna y que efectivamente obtenga el beneficio por el que trabajamos. Y finalmente voy a hacer algunos breves comentarios sobre la sustentabilidad económica y financiera necesaria para llevar adelante esto de forma exitosa. Bueno, Montevideo, estamos hablando de otra escala de lo que comentaban ustedes recién, están acostumbrados en Brasil, aquí somos 1.300.000 habitantes. Montevideo tiene el 41% de la población del Uruguay y el 96% de la población de Montevideo reside en áreas urbanas. Esto hace un poquito especial en nuestro caso, no tenemos tanta población dispersa, sino simplemente nosotros tenemos una población urbana que no cuenta con un 100% de cobertura. Hemos venido extendiendo las redes y en el momento nosotros tenemos un 92% de cobertura de las viviendas en zona urbana. Como aspectos generales, nosotros tenemos las competencias que tiene a su cargo la Intendencia del municipio donde nosotros trabajamos, es únicamente el saneamiento y el drenaje urbano del departamento. Tenemos un sistema de redes de saneamiento y drenaje muy antiguas, que como en la mayor parte de los lugares se desarrolló inicialmente en las zonas centrales de forma unitaria y luego se fue extendiendo hacia la periferia y hacia zonas menos densas, y se fue mudando según el paradigma de cada época, se trató después un sistema separativo, con todas las dificultades que conocemos que conlleva el control de las redes separativas para que el conexionado no solamente sea efectivo, o sea, que los vecinos usen la red, sino que la usen además de forma correcta. Y ahí tenemos un montón de experiencias para compartir. Tenemos además lagunas de amortiguación, tanques de amortiguación, muchas obras de alivio hacia nuestros cuerpos de agua, por ejemplo, de La Plata, que tratamos de proteger de alivios de aguas contaminadas de sistemas unitarios. Tenemos 2 emisarios subacuáticos y tenemos un montón de estaciones de bomberos para operar y que el sistema en su conjunto brinde el servicio que todos queremos. La forma de extender las redes en Montevideo se empezó a organizar desde el año 1983 en base a una planificación estratégica en Avanços. Nosotros concordamos que es la única forma de hacer efectivo un sistema con las inversiones hundidas que requiere el saneamiento. Realmente, si uno no planifica a largo plazo con una visión estratégica de hacia dónde extender las redes, es muy difícil realizar las inversiones tan costosas. Es así que nosotros en una larga cooperación con el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo hemos desarrollado los planes de saneamiento urbano. Aquí tenemos, parecido a lo que me presentaban recién, tenemos el saneamiento urbano 1, 2, 3, 4. Estamos, si todo va bien, finalizando el 5º plan de saneamiento y trabajando para tener un 6º plan. Hemos invertido muchos millones de dólares a la escala de nuestro país, claro está, en cooperación con el BID. Y de esa forma es que hemos logrado alcanzar el 92% de cobertura en la zona urbana que comentamos. Bueno, algunas cosas que sí funcionaron y que entendemos que capaz es un poco reiterativo, pero de verdad el acompañamiento de las grandes inversiones con cambios institucionales y de gestión es indispensable. O sea, las redes de saneamiento necesitan realmente un equipo fuerte que tome a su cargo este desafío y que lo planifique y que tenga las herramientas, sin duda tecnológicas, pero también humanas, la organización y la estructura, que tenga la capacidad, el músculo de llevar adelante este trabajo. Eso es indudable. Hemos encontrado también que hay un adecuado costo de la oportunidad de la inversión pública y empezar a elegir obras de alto impacto. Aquí hacemos siempre, en todos los préstamos, la relación costo-beneficio, los beneficiarios, los resultados, la partida de resultados, y bueno, elegir cómo los recursos, los escasos recursos que disponemos son mejor invertidos para que tengan un mejor impacto en la población. Sin duda la planificación estratégica es fundamental. Nosotros tenemos 2 planes directores, uno realizado en el siglo pasado y recientemente finalizamos de hacer uno, que es el que nos marca la línea, nos marca la visión, nos marca nuestras estrategias fundamentales. Y nos permite hacer inversiones balanceadas en drenaje, en ambiente, en saneamiento, en aspectos sociales, en aspectos de apoyo a la población más vulnerable, que vamos a mencionar un poquito más. Y bueno, realmente también, como se mencionaba antes, el sostenido esfuerzo a largo plazo es que se transforme esto realmente en una política de Estado, o sea, que el país entienda que esta es una inversión redituable, necesaria, imprescindible para el desarrollo. Bueno, algunas cosas que no funcionaron, siempre es bueno comentarlos. La mejora de la gestión y administración de los servicios, si bien invertimos mucho, dedicamos mucho esfuerzo, creo que siempre son insuficientes, por lo menos aquí. Uno siempre puede mejorar la forma de la gestión, la eficiencia del gasto, la eficiencia del trabajo. Siempre hay maneras de coordinar mejor. El relacionamiento interinstitucional es fundamental. Nosotros somos una municipalidad, tenemos que coordinar con organismos de gobierno nacionales y tenemos que con otros organismos, con otras agencias. Es muy importante siempre trabajar en la mejora de la gestión. El tema que estamos tratando de poner el foco es el segundo bullet que tenemos acá, es el bajo número de conexiones a las nuevas redes de alcantarillado debido a problemas con instalaciones sanitarias internas. Realmente la extensión de redes de zonas informales, más vulnerables, complica realmente y hace que este sea un desafío que supera la ingeniería, que supera la arquitectura de gestión edilicia puramente, supera aspectos legales. Realmente estamos hablando de personas que tienen la necesidad, que en nuestro caso está consagrada en la Constitución, de acceder al saneamiento. Entonces esto se torna en un aspecto social, interdisciplinario, que tiene que ser enfocado de una nueva forma.
process, which is something that
Y nosotros también
is
detectamos
right,
que la educación
guaranteed by
ambiental y
our
la comunicación con
constitution,
la
and we need to be
población
able to
deben
do
ser
this somehow. We
fortalecidas.
need to improve the
Bueno, nosotros
environmental
cuando
education
este problema de
and
la
also.
universalización y realmente de la concepción efectiva, ¿sí?
Você pode verificar se você está no canal de espanhol, por gentileza?
Sí, como no,
Maria, are you in the
disculpe.
right channel? Are you in the Spanish channel?
Ok, obrigado. Pode continuar, desculpa.
No, por favor. Desde larga data nosotros hemos detectado este problema y hemos hecho pequeños pasos, pequeños pilotos, pequeños.
Have detected these problems in time, and we held pilot projects, but with different results. Since 1999, we created a connection group that trying to intervene before, during, and after the construction to commit with the population and create involvement so that they can support the process. As a part of the institutional strengthening process, we also created a fee for rainwater drainage with the experience of referendum with good results and more than 20 years of application already. That guarantees us improvements in this regard. So then we created different instruments like the rotating fund, connection fund to collaborate with the population, the most vulnerable population, whether economically or in some other way. For the connections, we also created the reporting, the barometric reporting fund, and finally, we are in a program of evaluations where we try to strengthen social interventions, environmental awareness, and civic participation. And as always, we have the guidance of our Montevideo guiding plan, and most recently we tried to institutionalize the collaboration with the social environmental aspects, creating a unit, a specific unit specifically dedicated to these aspects. Well, we are moving on with various proposals by sector. And here we have different realities on the ground in different locations. So we have a space for consultation where the population can ask questions, provide input, and how to connect to the sanitation system. And we try to listen very closely and maintain the demand for information. And this also has activities in schools and for consultation, trying to coordinate various healthcare activities in many cases. We connect to other sectors that are connected to sanitation, and we have many successes along those lines because many technicians work and connect to that. Well, the information and communication that we have in different senses, different types. We have videos, posters. We publish things in the mass media by radio as well. And we also use different communications media to be able to communicate with effectively with the population. When we started to work with various sectors in the public sector, we created a hotline for the residences, and we tried to create in the property and build this initial phase. As you can see in the photos, we are building this first chamber in the residence that didn't have this system, and the collector is in the street and can be physically connected to people's houses or residences. And this was a major change and brought us some very satisfactory numbers. What we also do is technical assistance, and that has a great and very important value for us to hire a technician. It has it's very important for the project being done right and showing people how to properly build. And we deliver the design with a step-by-step outline of how to build, and that's produced very positive results because only with the technical support we're able to achieve great results. And for the most vulnerable populations, we deliver material, we provide advice in the construction, we provide support and construction materials to resolve technical issues that could arise along these lines. And lastly, the financial aspects of financial sustainability. We have a fee for sanitation services, which is charged as a function of the consumption of water. It is a price that is very accessible, and the social benefits for this category has a subsidy of 35% in the first few months. Also, 100% of the inclusion of the projects we've done and the changes that we've done afterwards. This is a plan that really has major benefits, and we all and everyone is able to pay a fee for the services that really changes people's quality of life. And furthermore, we also have a 10% fee that is charged during the construction, and this is how we the way we found to create a sustainable fee structure for long-term investment, so that we can produce universal access to sanitation. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bom, Maria, muito obrigado.
Well, Maria, thank you very much.
Pela palestra, obrigado
thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your participation.
Agora, em seguida, já
and now we will pass the floor directly to Leon Arturo Yepes, manager of wastewater management of the public company of Medellin, to talk about the experiences in Colombia. Leon, if you please, feel free. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. Please let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Sim, tá tudo ok.
Yes, it's all great.
Muchas gracias.
You can go ahead.
Bueno, nosotros queremos compartir
we want to share during the course of this event a little bit about regarding everything that is done regarding sanitation for wastewater treatment in the Valley of Agua in Medellin. I will do this in a process talking about a success case for universal access to the service that we call closing the gaps. For this, I would like to provide you with a concept for those who are participating, government companies in Medellin. We are a company that is located in the city of Medellin in Colombia, but it is a group of entrepreneurs that provides various services in a decentralized manner, such as electrical, gas, electrical power, gas, provision of water, sewage treatment, and garbage treatment as well. We are a multi-service company that is not just provides services in Colombia. For some of these services, we also have other partners that are providing these services in other countries, as you can see in the slide. But speaking specifically about Colombia, where we are going to concentrate today, as a matrix, we provide for Valley of Agua, which is and the nearby municipality called Rio Negro. It is a city close to Medellin, and that today, as the Casa Matriz, we provide these services, and we will tell you a little bit more about this region. In our system, we have all the entire value chain of the services of water, aqueducts, wastewater treatment, and most of them are focused on providing clean water, where we gather it, store it, and distribute it to the residences. And that's how the process of sanitation starts. We have the whole entire network of collection, primary collection network that transports wastewater to our treatment plants, of which we have 4 in the system, and 2 of them are the ones that have the greatest capacity for sanitation in our system. And this is then, these are then put into the Medellin River. I will talk about the whole sanitation model. I want to show you in this presentation on universal access. Everything starts with a need, and there's a need that is very directed to the attention of various countries in Latin America, the development of these cities that were built next to, on the river, on the banks of the rivers, like Medellin, that all of them dump their wastewater into the river. So we need to have a planning where we can bring together these types of wastewater and bring them to a treatment plant. Gustavo was saying very correctly that this is part of a planning that should be done, urban planning that should be done. And we also started to do this since the 1980s and more concentrated fashion in the 60s. And we had some attention to this topic. And we did an entire planning, and you can see here that the Valle of Abujan and the municipality of Medellin, that's in the central area. Those who know Medellin know very well that it is a river. We have the Medellin River throughout the entire valley. It is a mountainous region, and it flows through this valley through 10 different municipalities, what we call the metropolitan area. And so we had to create a strategy to create a program for bringing together all of this wastewater and sewage before it reaches the river from north to south, and create an entire plan for the collection and treatment of this that entered operation in 2000. This whole process of collection, and we built the second major wastewater treatment plant that started in 2018. And with this, it allows us to have a sanitation and treatment of 85% of all users. We are still missing, and what we have planned for the near future is to achieve the full treatment for municipalities in the north that are a little smaller, and we have to control and complete this part of the sanitation network that is missing. As I was saying, it was an effort over 4 decades of building and planning and efforts, 4 aspects as well that we call technically, of course, financials as well, to get the resources. And all this infrastructure was financed by means of tariffs or fees. We built this sanitation plan with no addition outside funds. It was always self-funded by the users, and this was supported by important banks, and one of them, or the major one, was the IDB that was our partner in this journey. But another great ally were the companies that participated, our users, the clients, who finally were able to understand the importance of this sanitation, and through the fees they were able to contribute. This was a benefit work of over 4 decades that brought us to create this entire system, and these are the wastewater treatment plants with benefits, of course, for the city, not just the environmental aspects and health aspects, but also they start to show up in recreation areas that allow us to have the development, and the same river becomes a driving force for the development of the city and the region. Today, we have around the river, we have some occupation that we understand because we created a prioritization for sanitation of the river. We have a zoning where you can not only have industry and retail and sports centers, but also we can plan for housing. There's a whole level of development that some years ago, when the river was completely contaminated and smelled horrible, that wasn't possible. So these benefits allowed us to increase. We measured, our objectives were to increase the dissolved oxygen. You can see that as we before we had level of dissolved oxygen that were very close to a milligram or less. So it's totally heavily polluted, and today the objective was achieved, and we have values over 5 milligrams per liter of dissolved oxygen. That's one of the most important parameters that we measure. And so we're able to get some important indicators in terms of coverage for all this topic of the collection of the transportation network. We have 95% approximately coverage with regards to treatment. As I was saying, we have approximately 85% of our users have treated sewage, and we have a number of benefits associated with this network. But when we reach these levels, we start to find that the universal access to the services we were saying here, we started to also reach the high costs. But we are able to see that in this region here, that we are doing this management, the challenges are more complex. And we have many different projects that we're working on, and we're working to minimize and to reach this sector in management sectors. Today, we want to share what we call the closing of the gap. This is the potential of approximately 20,000 users that have water services, because for some years ago they had to pay for sewage treatment. In this, about 20,000 of them, because they were close to riverside riparian zones, and they didn't have treated sewage services. So closing the gap in the difference between the number of users of freshwater services and clean water services and the sanitation services. They have the clean water service, but not the sewage services. There's a diagnosis of the sector where we check the services of sanitation, how we can do an intervention in this regard. We think that in most cases they would just dump their sewage into the rivers, and we started to generate an entire project that would try to find a solution for all of these problems, especially in areas that are difficult to access. We started the intervention, and today we have 81 projects with the quantities you can see, mileage involved and so forth, and you see the entire design, the structural design. We implemented the construction of many of them. There is a very essential point in this, which are the environmental licensing. The environmental licensing are very complex because many of them, the infrastructures, we're intervening in them, especially where we have transporting the water from the water sources that are being channeled, or that could generate an impact in this on this infrastructure. We had to do some important processes with the other authorities so that we were able to do all the implementation in the project system that we wanted. At the same time, defining the designs and guidelines and specifications for this type of network, these unconventional networks. You will see various photos, you will be able to see that we have some solutions, some very unconventional solutions, which is the only way we found to to intervene in this type of project, which, as we said earlier, is a special point of focus because they are considered sectors where it was much more difficult to have access to this type of service. So we planned to meet these objectives of providing services to these locations that are difficult to access, in locations where these we see these discharge of sewage directly into the rivers. And so at the same time, our major river, Medellin River, not just in the tributaries, but also the main one, we need to use this to improve the quality of life in these communities. Here we have a great proliferation of vectors of smell, disease vectors and smells that negatively affects these communities. What we achieved with these projects in this community is they were very happy to have greater acceptance of this because it generates a very important change in their lives. And this also attracted caused the recovery of our water sources. We were able to develop other water sources to a more natural level. We had three major points because we had limited space and specifications, as you see in the photos, but we also have to seek these solutions that would allow us to generate this, produce this sanitation through, as you can see, the pipelines through mountains and hills and various technical elements that allowed us to be able to advance in this topic. Here you can see some of these photos of these locations in very unconventional areas that would allow us to produce this access. As you can see, they're very complex. They are in a certain way situations or solutions that have an important cost when faced with when compared to conventional solutions. But as we always insisted on, with the infrastructure and with sanitation, we will produce these solutions. And today we already have to start to think about sectors where in locations where it's difficult to collect this sewage is important to provide universal access to this service. In summary, our results, as we mentioned, is a challenge that allows us to meet the needs of the people in these regions. It's a challenge we have to be able to provide services to many more regions because, fortunately, people continue to come into the city that because of their social situation, these populations have informal communities without urban planning, and these number of situations that we have to deal with conventional and unconventional methods. So we have this tool that allows us to reach the city from an environmental point of view, but also social point of view. I would like to highlight the reduction of the pollutant load with the reduction of disease vectors and odors. And so the project was presented for the contest of prizes and ideas in action in the IDB, and we obtained the certificate for having participated, and we were selected as the winner, and it was a great satisfaction for us because it was a great effort by the whole project team. And regarding how to reach difficult areas with difficult access with unconventional and different methods. That's what we wanted to share with you all, and we will be open to any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leon, for such a thorough presentation. We are very happy to hear from you. And together with Maria's lecture on Latin American experience, we have learned quite a lot. Now I will pass the floor to Flávio Coutinho, who is the director of the Pernambuco company of sanitation. So, good morning. Can you see my screen?
Sim, Flávio.
Bom,
Só peço que você coloque no módulo apresentação, por gentileza.
Ah, não está no módulo da apresentação?
Até agora não.
Só um minutinho. Agora foi?
Sim, sim.
Sim. Bom, então bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I will be talking a little bit about the different actions that we have been implementing to improve the quality of life of our population. I'll talk a little bit about our wastewater utility, which is a state-owned company. In Pernambuco, we have the worst water prices in the country, as it is summarized on this slide, showing that 90% of our territory today is in a semi-arid region, and 80% of the water volume is available in the metropolitan area in the city of Recife. So our major challenge today, the major challenge of the state and of our utility company, is to bring water to all of these different areas in the metropolitan area and also the semi-arid areas. This is quite a big challenge, but we are constantly trying to expand our wastewater sanitation system, and that's why we have built in our metropolitan region a program. This program was done through a public-private partnership with a BRK Ambiental. This is a project that is going to last quite a few years, 35 years. We have already estimated an investment of 6.7 billion reais, and we will be sharing different tasks regarding infrastructure and regarding the expansion of the system. We know that we need to expand our wastewater system so that we can benefit the whole population of our state. We have already invested around 2.05 billion reais, so all of this region today already has some of the projects implemented. There are some other municipalities in the metropolitan region of Recife that have already seen the beginning of some of the works, or that have already had the project fully implemented. And in some other areas, we are implementing expansion projects. My previous colleagues have already talked about how hard it is for us to expand the wastewater system anywhere in our country or in the world, for that matter. And it's very hard for us to have the different parts of the population adopting our system. So we need to innovate more and more, and we need to have programs that can actually serve the population as a whole, no matter where they are. So with all the work that we started in 2013, we have been able to improve the maintenance of our systems. So today, whenever we have problems, whenever we have leakages, for example, we are able to fix these problems within 48 hours. We have also been able to quadruple the volume of sewage being treated in our wastewater treatment plants. Last year, we treated 2,000 liters per second, and this represents the sewage volume that was treated in our wastewater treatment plant. And you can see that we have evolved quite a lot compared to 2013. We have also been expanding, as I mentioned, the work that we carry out in maintenance and operations as well. And this way, we have been able to expand our sewage collection system and make sure that our sewage gets to our wastewater treatment plants. In 2013, we started our partnership, getting to 30% of coverage, and now we have reached 38%. And in 2025, we will get to 53%, and by 2037, we'll be able to reach 90% of our coverage. In this way, we will get to the universal access we are looking for. Regarding strategies to deal with social vulnerability, this is a major challenge, not only in urban areas, but especially in areas where we have major social vulnerability because of the difficulty to access these houses and this population. Recently, we had a case which was quite successful, and a case that we can see as being successful compared to other actions that we have been implementing. We have been able to see that we were able to minimize the amount of sewage on the streets and also in some drainage chambers. This is the main action that we need to take. We were able to create 2,000 connections in one of our neighborhoods. We have invested 13.5 million reais. We finished this project at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. Today we have another program called Connecting to the Network, and it's very similar to what happens in other states as well. The first phase of this program involves a social program where we work together with associations and the population. We carry out a diagnosis together with local leaders and together with public leaders as well that work at the local government. And this way we are able to work together with our society. We know that this is something that is very important. We need to convince the population that they need to help us with achieving our environmental sustainability goals, and that's why we have been working together with the population, and this has been really successful. In the second phase, we work to identify clearly where they are disposing of the sewage that is generated in their house. And finally, we have an assessment to find the opportunities that we have and how we can connect these houses to the recently implemented system. So we make a lot of investment. We make sure that we work together with this population, and we try to find the most appropriate technology according to our environmental parameters and the sewage treatment parameters that we have. And based on this, we carry out different actions so that we can make sure that we can collect the sewage into our plants and treat them. Of course, we have had some problems. I think that most companies that work with wastewater services have problems, such as very narrow streets with a very poor urbanization level, and the acceptance and the uptake of users. Unfortunately, this is a problem. Many times these people, they have their own wells, or many times they just decide to dispose of their sewage in another way. And we know that this is a problem. We know that contrary to water supply services, sewage is a little bit different. We need to kind of raise awareness among our population so that they understand that as we eliminate sewage, we are able to eliminate diseases as well, diseases that cause historical problems, public health problems, and this is also something that we try to make our population understand. There is also the problem of mobility, which is something that naturally happens whenever we try to implement a project. So in this first phase, we were able to serve 60% of our population, which has been quite successful. Today, we are working on the 40% remaining, and we are now expanding the program that we had before, and we are trying now to achieve the population living in underserved areas and more vulnerable populations. And we are also working with commercial areas as well. And this way we are able to work with these companies. We also work with private companies, and to stimulate them, we have created a microcredit system so that we make sure that all the population will start using our system, and this way we can avoid this population dumping sewage in an inappropriate space. Different from what happens in other utility companies in the country, today we do have also some benefits to the most vulnerable population. Today we just charge a very small fee to some of our clients, and there are some clients there are low-income clients that are exempt from this fee. So those clients that can't afford it don't need to pay this sewage fee. This is something that has been around for many years. This is part of our culture in the state. And here on the other side, you have all the conditions that these population need to prove so that they can have this benefit. You can see here that we have our water tariff, which is very low, and we have all of these clients that are in vulnerable situations not paying our sewage fee. 8% of our population benefit from this so-called social tariff, so this exemption. So we have a very large group of our population benefiting from this today. We have also identified some other areas that will benefit from our projects. We have some areas in Brazil where people live in hills, or people live in very remote areas, or people who live in areas where the urbanization system is not really well implemented. So we know that we will have to work quite hard so that we can reach these areas. We have a lot of our population living in these areas. We have around 62,000 houses in these areas, representing around 123 inhabitants. So we know that we will need around 148 million reals in investment, and we believe that we will be very successful in this case as well. And since the population will be exempt from these fees, and since they know that they might have access to better sewage connection, we believe that they will adopt and help us implement this system. We know that in some cases we will have to be very unconventional. We won't be able to use proper engineering infrastructure so that we can connect these people to our networks. So we will have to be very innovative so that we can collect the sewage from these houses into our treatment plants. So we will have over 300 kilometers of sewage network to be implemented. I think this is one of the worst areas here in Recife, and we believe that this way we will be able to keep them from disposing of their sewage into our rivers. Another project that we have been creating together with the Interamerican Bank is the PCA Ipojuca program. It started in 2013, and it's a program that involves over 70,000 sewage connections in many different municipalities in the state of Pernambuco. On the map that we saw before, this is the area where we have the worst water crisis. Normally, people just have access to water once a month, and even so, we have been expanding our program so that we can increase the water supply in this area. And we also want to make sure that we are expanding sewage coverage. So we are going to have quite a thorough program where we will improve water supply and also improve the quality of life of this population through sewage connections. In this program, all of the works that are being implemented are being done in the municipal area, and we are also creating other connections within houses and within condos. So this way we are able to have great participation of the population in most cases, but sometimes it's harder due to the population, to the culture of the population, and they don't want to adopt the program. This is a very important program for us that we have been developing together with the IDB and other utility companies. We have also been implementing a program in the city of Gravatá, and we have also been working with the population, and we go from one house to another to make sure that we can raise awareness among the population. And their main goal is to eliminate this illegal disposal of sewage, and we have already started the creation of 6,000 connections, and we believe that we will be able to have 3,000 connections in the second phase. The idea is that we will be very successful, and this way we will work with all the different individuals, and this way also create connections in every single house. So we have been working in many different ways so that we can expand our sewage system network. And that's all I wanted to present for now. I know that I was speaking very fast, but I hope that you were able to understand everything that we have been doing over the last few years. Thank you so much. Thank you, Flavio, for your excellent talk. And now let's move on to our last talk by Fabio Basso, who is the director, who is the general management, who is the general manager of Sanitária. I will pass the floor to our colleague so that he can start his presentation.
Hello, please let me know if it's you can see my presentation. So good morning, everyone. I would like to greet our moderator, Alexandre, and greet the National President of ABES, Mr. Alceu, and extend my greetings to all my colleagues and fellow participants and speakers in the session, as well as everyone who is watching us. I would like to thank you for the opportunity and the honorable invitation to bring a little more information about our company, the Company of Sanitation of Paraná, Sanepar. So I will begin talking briefly about some general numbers of the company, overall numbers of the company. State of Paraná, 399 municipalities where we work. We are present in 345 municipalities of Paraná, and we also have here presence in our neighboring state, Santa Catarina. We serve a population of almost 12 million people. Our rate of clean water supply in the urban areas is 100%. And the general average on a state level, we have with a collection of sewage of our network of near 78%. When we look to our numbers, by larger cities with 100,000 inhabitants or more, cities with a population with a greater representation, we have numbers that are also very significant, on an average of 85% of collection of sewage. In some cities we do the same correlation with the water network with regards to number of sewage connections. We have 100% of rate of service, and in some many cities we're very close to universal access, as is the case in our capital city, the city of Curitiba, where we have a population of 2 million inhabitants. We currently have a rate of 98% of service provided by our sewage collection network. So we start with the problem of this great theme of universal access, which is a theme that is so important and so transformative to people's lives that we need to make progress in. And then when I have the opportunity to comment, that people tell me that the challenges to achieve this the missing percentage, as was said by my other colleagues, the other people that spoke previously. We need to make advances in this sanitation sector has to advance with different solutions from the conventional ones. There are alternatives, engineering solutions, and solutions that may depend on other stakeholders beyond the service company itself. So engineering solutions, but which also have a context of a financial context where we take into account what the population is able to pay. So along these lines, when we do a sampling of the difficulties and of the actions that are needed to make progress toward universal access, we find situations like this sampling that I'm bringing you here, in this experience where in a certain area, in order for us to achieve with our sewage network, sewage collection network, we would have using the conventional model for the properties would be 60%. So we'd have to think of another 40%, which is not one alternative solution like the ones presented here. We'll have to have individual solutions, issues of individual pumping and collection networks, but in this case specifically, 58% of the cases show to be feasible with a alternative solution to the network, the sewage network going through their own properties, so that we can make progress to meet the needs of many other people needing connections. In the same way, we see the need of areas of service so that we can provide this service. So it is a problem that brings the discussion, the need for alternatives in engineering that are economically feasible and that fall outside the conventional range of solutions. So an experience and a concern that we are working quite intensely on is with regards to the objective of universal access. All of us talk about universal access and we imagine a sewage collection network in the front of every building. But what do we expect for universal access? Is it just collection networks, or is it transforming people's lives, adding value, making differences in people's lives, providing health, better health, providing preventative medicine, which is the great mission of our entire sector, and bringing healthcare as a consequence and quality of life to society. So when we find ourselves faced with this type of question, we come to light in our discussions that here in the company. It comes to light in our strategic plan, and it's part of our multi-annual investment plan. And the numbers presented previously, I might add, owe a great deal to a multi-annual plan aligned with the overall master plan for sanitation, with the goals of the landmark law and also the municipal goals, and we're meeting those goals every year. But is it enough to just, after all this effort on the part of the company and all this enormous investment applied for a sewage collection network, if we don't have the correct use of these networks? This is a topic that we're very concerned about, and we have worked here very strongly, not just internally in the company, but also to create and build alternatives and solutions together with the municipalities here in the city of Curitiba, in our capital. We have worked very closely with the municipal authorities and work very extensively along those lines. And so we bring this to light in the discussions, this problems of the correct use of our network, even with the understanding of the harm to the community that this situation could cause. There are areas where we did the investment and we brought the sewage collection network into that community. The connections are done correctly, but due to another area with the illegal dumping, it harms the area that has correct treatment. So the harm is exponentially increased in these situations. Properly served areas with the possibility of sewage trickling through the street because an upstream area had an obstruction because of misuse of the system, as well as the harm this can cause in the treatment plants themselves, significantly reducing the efficiency of the treatment, and so with enormous environmental impacts. So it is a very serious problem that is covered in a number of situations. So when we see our experience that in 2021, with all the problems inherent in the pandemic, etc., we're able, through enormous effort and investment, we're able to undertake 81,500 inspections to identify these situations, and we faced with almost half of these inspections we saw some type of illegality. This is a very significant cause for worry for us if we really want to fulfill the mission of the universal access to sanitation, which is to change people's lives through our services. So this is a topic that needs to be addressed. There's no question about that. So we will make advances in this situation, evidently, as with other companies in the country, and as was presented by our colleagues here, with the work of raising awareness. We have to develop environmental managers at a local level in society, and we have an enormous amount of work that starts in the schools and will go until society itself, with the program called Connect Yourself to the Network, providing all the technical support for the correct connections into the network, because many of these situations are poorly connected, just not because of the malice, but just a lack of information. The plumber hired by the homeowner does not know the system, does not know enough to make a correct connection, and so they make the connection in an improper fashion. So we believe very strongly in this awareness raising work, but unfortunately, in some part of society, only raising awareness, they were not able to, and they don't do their proper installation. Whenever I have the opportunity, I say it's like wearing a seatbelt in the car in traffic. We as Brazilians, we use seatbelts not just because of the work of raising awareness that was done, but because we are penalized, we are fined if we don't wear a seatbelt. So it's along those lines that the company has worked with the fines, monetary fines, to make it very clear and emphasize very strongly the objective is not to penalize people for its own sake, but to have an instrument which is giving the possibility of proper connections when simply awareness raising is not enough. So then I'll bring some very interesting data to show the effectiveness of this work of fines. So the initial inspections, only 20% of those illegal, of those irregular connections were regularized. The other 80% stayed as is. From the moment that we started to fine people after a second notification, we've had a result of those improper connections. 64% paid to have them corrected. Another 36% went to our company's offices to try to understand what was going on and ask for some time frame because they had to buy some equipment or make some other alterations. But everybody had to show their interest and sought out our company to correct the errors. And for most of them, asking for additional time. 60% solved the problem before the deadline, and another 40 are using the extended deadline. So we believe very strongly in this instrument, emphasizing that the point is not to penalize anybody, but to have a tool that will take the homeowner out of their comfort zone to get them to correct the problems, since this causes enormous harm to society as a whole. And we are evaluating, it's on our radar, the eventual fines collected being converted to a fund or share to contribute to providing help to low-income populations to make those corrections. And these improper connections, although we have a trend to a tendency to think about these areas of greatest vulnerability and people with very low incomes, etc. But many of these improper connections are people with very high incomes, or some restaurants, some very high-end restaurants here, dumping cooking oil into this sewage network, causing enormous problems. And finally, our concern with bringing sanitation to everyone, access to basic sanitation to everyone, and that's how we, as with every city, has the problem of illegal land use, and this is the same everywhere. And so, as well as trying to legalize the occupation of this municipality, where the municipalities are legalizing the use of the land, we are now advancing a pilot project which is encouraged by various stakeholders, Sanepar, the public prosecutor's office, the municipal authorities, the regulatory agencies. We are identifying some areas of improper land use that have been there for many years that won't be leaving anytime soon. So they provide the proper land titles and regularizing the ownership, etc. It's just a matter of time. And there we have all the problems of improper connections, of water connections, and huge losses. So we are working together with various stakeholders in a way to synchronize the provision of water and electrical power, and provide it as a way of environmental compensation in these illegally occupied areas that already use the water, so they generate sewage. And most of them are in areas close to rivers and streams. So as a way to compensate the environmental damage, we have the collection and treatment of sewage, and obviously applying our fee, our social fee, which taking into account certain criteria. There is a reduction in the value by up to 80% of the fee charged per family. So it's important actions that the company has made progress in, has been working very intensely on, to not just fulfill goals, but to transform people's lives, taking the best of our work, which is health and quality of life, the practice of preventative medicine, to these populations. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention over the last few minutes, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to participate, and thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Fabio. Thank you very much indeed. I would like to thank all the speakers, because everybody kept themselves very strictly within our time frame. And so now I will make a brief try to make, because they were very rich presentations and they had a lot of information. So I'm going to try to make a summary of what was said and everything that was expressed over the course of these 5 presentations. I will not say the people's names, because I think it would be very difficult to keep up because of the information density of these presentations. So we talked extensively about issues initially connected to the effective development of the sector, resilience to climate change and innovation, prioritizing the intersectorial cooperation and governance, long-term vision and innovation. And one or the other of these points were always mentioned in every one of the presentations on the success stories. We talked about cases in Brazil and in other countries that highlight the difficulty in terms of the technological aspects, the issue of sustainability of the services, the emphasis on planning, the challenges of taking on new positions and new thinking out of the box, if you will, in technical terms, in social terms as well, in terms of economic and financial arrangements, and especially the challenge that consumes time, effort, and a great deal of financial resources over time to provide universal access and to bring dignity and health to the population. Our topic today of universal access to sewage treatment to population in urban areas in the major cities that illegally occupy the land and that need not only the treatment, this action needs a support, initial support with instruments that would allow contact with society, explanations of technical solutions, attention to the needs of this population for their services, and finally, not only conversation, so to speak, and convincing and raising awareness, but also the use of other instruments for this, such as, for example, in this last presentation, the instrument of fines of some type for violations, and not just for its the issue just to punish, but rather to use these resources to provide to fill other needs. In the international presentations, if I'm not mistaken, Maria Mena told us that there is a certain proximity of the urban planning and service provision as well connected to drainage. So they would charge a drainage or wastewater fee, and I understood that would be done at the same time or in parallel. And this would be a great panel that I tried to go through, address all the presentations, including the presentation of Leon, now more specifically, who outlined the benefits of the association, the cooperation of the funds for basic sanitation and control of wastewater and sewage treatment with water resource management, which was reinforced in Fabio Coutinho's presentation, in which he mentioned examples in this regard. And especially, I would like to thank the basis that was provided here by Gustavo Mendez presentation that allowed us to not just in his presentation, but also in the introduction, to connect the development of all this work with the National Plan for Basic Sanitation, with the goals that are set out therein, and this challenge. I don't know if you all are aware, but we have an immense challenge to provide universal access of water and sanitation, which is provided in Brazilian law, law 445, altered by law 14025, with ambitious goals of 90% access by contract and adequately treated sewage in a sustainably and environmentally sustainable fashion, and 99% provision of treated water, clean water to users. Finally, we also commented here was commented on by the speakers, the capacity of the users to pay for this service versus the need for investments. So with this very, very brief summary summary, I would like to thank you all once again for the opportunity to be here moderating this very rich debate, and I will ask the questions. I would like everybody to open their, turn on their cameras, please, insofar as possible. And the first question comes from Eliana, which I hope, and she asked Leo and Yepes, could you tell me what is the final destination of the sludge of the system in Medellin? And this is the first question, Leo. Please, you may answer.
Sí, buenos días. No, mira, nosotros
yes, good morning. Well, we have currently in our wastewater treatment and sewage treatment plants, we have a process of biodigestion that includes sludge in that category that we call biosolids in Colombia. And this category of biosolids allow us to make use for fertilizer, basically, that in most cases 70 to 80% of the cases we use it in to fertilize degraded soils, especially for cattle pastures and improvement of soils with some type of important or significant degradation. And the 80% left over is used in composting that combines these biosolids with other types of materials to transform them into fertilizer. This is the way we use the sludge. Today we have a production of approximately 250 tons of biosolids that have this use. Thank you very much, Leon. The second question is not addressed to anyone in particular, but I would like to request that it be answered by Maria Mena, from the Office of the Technical Coordinator to the Sanitation Division of Uruguay, Government of Uruguay. Talked about Maria Angelica Ioacomo. The question goes like this: the issue of meeting the needs of communities with illegal land use. How is this done in Uruguay, especially in Montevideo, and how to attain universal access in this case? There was a comment by Engenharia, Brazil, Tecnologia, Environment, saying that, for reflections also by Maria Mena, that these unregulated areas, one option would be to treat the sewage in standalone systems instead of feeding into the central network. Would this be a solution in your opinion, Maria? I pass the floor to you now.
Bueno, muchas gracias por la pregunta. Relativa a la primera pregunta de cómo se trabaja, según lo que entendí, en asentamientos irregulares, Montevideo y el país tienen un programa de integración de asentamientos irregulares, cofinanciado también por el BID, donde se hace una intervención integral de cada uno de los asentamientos. Son intervenciones largas y costosas, multisectoriales, interdisciplinarias, donde se hace un adecuamiento del hábitat, se hace saneamiento, drenaje, se hacen calles y se hace una adecuación del hábitat. En general, de los espacios públicos también se interviene, y se interviene también en realojos donde están en zonas inundables o para abrir espacios públicos. Esas intervenciones han sido estudiadas como un caso de estudio porque son intervenciones costosas y largas. La eficiencia en esos casos de conexión llegan al orden de 99-100% de conectividad efectiva, porque se pone como contrapartida de darle la titularidad del lote a los integrantes que efectivamente estén conectados al saneamiento. Entonces, realmente son programas exitosos, pero son largos y son de un alcance territorial pequeño. Entonces, si estamos hablando de la universalización, pensar en extender esos programas a toda la zona irregular es un desafío realmente, porque llevaría mucho tiempo y muchos recursos. Y ahí es donde los desafíos que los participantes mencionaron, tecnológicos, creo que hay que empezar a buscar otro tipo de alternativas. Con respecto a la segunda pregunta sobre tratamiento, ¿qué tipo de tratamientos se podrían hacer en zonas irregulares? Entendí que era así. Nosotros tenemos algún pequeño problema porque las zonas irregulares están muy densas y muy cerca de la zona urbana, entonces no disponen en general de espacio para proponer alguna medida de tratamiento del sitio, que si no entendí mal era la pregunta. Entonces, por ahora las soluciones que tomamos en el 90% son conectarlas a las redes. En algunos lugares específicos, más aislados, donde teníamos localizaciones vulnerables, pero lejos de la mancha urbana, sí se han hecho lagunas de tratamiento o otro tipo de solución, pero siempre a nivel del lote de la urbanización del conjunto. No sé si responde la pregunta.
Solutions for treatment on site. I don't know if I answered your question.
Muito obrigado, Maria.
Thank you very much, Maria. The next question is from Álvaro José Menezes da Costa. It is for Flávio Coutinho. And he makes the following question. In the areas which are most vulnerable, how do you charge for the services? I think Flávio already answered that first part of the question, but you can reinforce it or rectify it. No problem, Flávio, go ahead. And the second part goes like this. What about when people don't pay their fees? So I understand that when you try to collect these social fees, so please comment on that briefly. Yes, regarding the fee, we are in very poor communities or in any other client that can request the social tariff. They're exempt from these charges for sewage collection. So this is a reasonable concern for the population we have, about 8%, as I said in my presentation. With regards to the fee collection, there is a collection of the fees, but there is the fee for the water, and these type of areas we do the social work so that little by little there is the construction of an internal system within the residences to interconnect the houses to our sewage system, as well as a collection of the other clients. We do this naturally. Of course, we have to have all the social work that's a little better done, because as we don't have a perceptible amount received, of course, the client has to work differently so that they can give even more importance, understand the greater importance of the proper use of the systems. This is done in the collection of the fees, but in this case for the water. With regards to sewage, we try to do the most work we can to build the whole internal system, including bathrooms. In some houses, we can build this system inside the homes until it can be connected to our system. But there is a major difficulty in collecting the fees, not just for low-income communities, but for everybody. I think Fabio from Sanitária told us the reality of Paraná that has a level of culture, and Pernambuco is pretty much the same. So in this, there is a difficulty regardless of income level, as he said, even for major restaurants, hotels even, or in the population that have lower levels of education. So this reflects the whole difficulty that exists, because from the moment that the person flushes their toilet or turns off their faucet, they were able to, that water's going somewhere, they just don't know where it is, but they got rid of their problem, which is the problem of sewage. So there's a difficulty that exists, but we do all the work to collect it, and we try to finance these the construction of the system as best we can. So I understood the second part of the question is focused, Flavio, on non-payment of the fees. So if the user, even if, with this social fee, if they don't pay their water bill, and the sewage bill comes together with the water bill, the company will the company undertake the same legal procedures that exist in the urban areas for normal clients without especially vulnerable clients? I understand that's the question. I just wanted to add something so you could comment, because there is a question from Anistrava that deals with, beyond answering this issue of non-payment, where there is a campaign for Se Liga na Rede, or Connect to the Network, which was done, where this campaign was undertaken. Were there positive drainage systems, or were there the connection to the sewage to rainwater drainage? So I will pass the floor then to Basi, and he can comment on the reality there in Curitiba. And this question, I think, is appropriate for both. So Flavio, you can start, and then Fabio will make the comments he thinks necessary. Very briefly, I think with regards to non-payment of bills, it happens even with the discounted bill and subsidized bills. It happens in this moment we're living in now. More drastically over the last few years, in terms of pandemic, there was an exemption for a certain period of this fee for water. So we were able to continue provide services naturally, but when faced with the difficulty of the population having sufficient income to pay even this reduced fee, less than 10 reais, we were able to see that there was an increase in non-payment. So we spent some time operating, but of course exempting the water fees. So that happened. Now with regard, we absorb those losses, and of course this impacts our cash flow, but is not something so significant compared to non-payment by large clients, large consumers. And the situation, right, mentioned the drainage system, and in parallel to that, we also do actions of the municipal government of Recife. So we work with the municipal government of Recife to implement the network in the street, and we understand that certain connections reach certain points that need to cross with the drainage system. So there was a very close parallel work with the municipality, both for rainwater drainage and Copesa to work with the sewage collection. So we worked in parallel. Fabio, if you please, your impressions on the drainage issues. Well, in our case, yes, there's also the rainwater drainage network in parallel to the sewage network collection, making very clear that it is the importance of the work to raise awareness, society in schools, and we also use various communications, media, social media, etc., to create a collective understanding that these are two different systems. The rainwater collection system is one thing, and the sewage collection system is a completely different thing. And I might open a parenthesis. We have the region, the region of the coastline, which has difficulties because of its land, and many times social network have the fault, so to speak, that open up our pipes and our inspection boxes so that the water of the rainwater drainage enters into the sewage network, causing enormous problems. But we also have that, and the illegal connections found are very frequent. Rainwater being poured into the sewage system, and the sewage being dumped into the rainwater collection system. So I mentioned in the beginning of we have the fines there, and we have some improper connections that Sanepar itself, for legal reasons, alignment with the regulatory agency, can apply fines for some improper connections that harm our network exclusively, including other improper connections like dumping sewage in rainwater connections. We do not have police powers, so we have to work together with the municipal authorities. And for this reason, I emphasize very strongly this work that involves many different stakeholders to provide a proper connection. And the municipal authorities have been great partners of ours in this sense. So, Fabio, let's see here that the next in this subject that you're touching on, José Nelson Almeida Machado provides two questions regarding the fines. So this notification is done by which authority? So You even answered part of it. I would like you to get into a little more detail, please. And what is the amount of the fines? That's what they're asking here. Okay, I will complement that. Thank you for the question. So there are three types of illegal activity that Sanepar, given the harm it causes to our network and to society as a whole, including the efficiency of our sewage treatment plant, we can apply these fines, which are the directing rainwater into sewage systems, which they're not. Our sewage network is not designed to do. So it's either inefficiency or misuse of the collection of the oil, cooking oil, and also the launch of non-domestic, non-residential sewage in our system. If they have like a backyard, garage, or whatever, and they dump it into sewage. So there, in those cases, we apply the fine, which I want to emphasize once again is the final resort. We give the client every opportunity to make the adjustments. We do a first notification. We give people a deadline that they ask for. We can extend the deadline. We're very flexible in this regard. The monetary fine is only applied when there is really no other interest on the part of the homeowner to correct the mistakes. So at first, an average of 5 months times 2 of the bill, the 5 months times 2 of their bill. If they don't respond, given in a certain time, that fine is doubled. So that is the situation. The other improper connections, such as the launching of sewage directly into the rainwater connection collection network, we identify, we separate out this with all the data, and through the Municipal Secretariat of the Environment, we provide them this information, and they, through their surveillance, through the police powers of the municipality, has make the necessary issues, and they can activate the government, the public prosecutor's office, accusing them of a environmental crime, as the case may be. So in a very summarized fashion, that's how it works. Thank you, Fabio. Leon, I would like to extend this question to your experience, the experience of your company in Medellin, Colombia, in two aspects. First, the difficulty or the ease in finding a solution to the challenge of withdrawing the oils, fats, etc., from the residences of vulnerable residents or those located in difficult areas. And secondly, how do you do it when people don't pay their bills, or is there some type of fine for the user if they misuse or refuse to properly use the system or the collection network that is being installed in that area?
Bueno, primero con respecto al tema del manejo de la calidad de los vertimientos.
Well, first regarding the quality of this waste, we normally emphasize more industry waste and commercial waste. When it comes to oil and fats, we know that normally when we're talking about commercial spaces like restaurants, that's when we are going to have these problems. When it comes to households, we normally do not have major impact coming from them. Somehow there is some kind of dilution in the flushes coming from these households. Normally we have some obstruction here and there, but it's not something very common that happens in our network. But there is a great control in relation to households, especially in the sectors that I mentioned.
estos diseños especiales de esas redes no convencionales, uno de los elementos críticos
we have created a special design of this unconventional network. One of the critical elements that we created was inspection boxes. Since they were unconventional connections, we had some kind of unconventional inspection as well. And in these places where we have these inspection boxes, we have to have maintenance quite often. And we need to somehow try and collect this fat every so often. But we do have some specificities when we are working with these unconventional infrastructures. Regarding your question about fines and tariffs, here in Medellin or in our company, normally we have a very good portfolio of users. They are willing to pay and they can afford it. And we work with municipalities with a scheme of subsidies. We have stratified our city, creating different tiers from 1 to 6, and tiers 1, 2, and 3 represent low-income populations. 5 and 6 are sectors that have greater ability to pay, and they normally pay more than 4, which is our standard. So 1, 2, and 3, they normally have subsidies, and these subsidies help us leverage the payment. In some municipalities, especially Medellin, we have some additional benefits as well, which are associated to the condition of our users. So if our users are more vulnerable, they can connect, they can actually benefit from our system. Normally, for example, they can have 1, 2, 3 cubic meters that are free of charge. So the municipality will cover these costs to this population, both for the provision of water and also for wastewater treatment. So this makes it easier for us to deal with all non-payment problems. And whenever we have a problem, we cut off the service to these homeowners. Thank you, Leon. And now I pass the floor to Maria Mena, and I want you to talk about the same topics. What happens in Montevideo, in Uruguay, and of course, if I just want you to talk about it, if you know about this subject. Based on your presentation, I've seen some examples of some systems that you have, some inspection boxes that you create and that you have in your system. I don't know how you call this, what you call this exactly. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this issue. I wanted to talk about non-payment, and I want you to talk about the benefits that you give to these users. And I want to also add another question that was asked by Mario Vaggio, who is here with us today, and also another question from Leticia Santos. And they were talking about they were asking about the drainage fee that you touched upon. Vaggio is making some comments about the combination of wastewater services and urban drainage services with the collection of fees that you mentioned in Montevideo. You have already mentioned, we have already some comments and some examples here from Brazil. And according to him, we have this implemented in some parts of Brazil. So I want to know how this is in Montevideo. Leticia Santos is also asking under what conditions you would charge for drainage services. So I'm passing the floor to you, Maria, so that you can make comments and remarks about these questions.
Bueno, con respecto a la primera pregunta, Lo que nosotros mostrábamos era la construcción de la cámara número 1, que es la cámara de acceso al predio. La caja de grasa, como lo entiendo yo, es la que está un poquito más adentro de la vivienda. Nosotros tenemos las dos combinaciones, una para proteger tal cual los datos y la otra porque tenemos la inyección para el mantenimiento de la conexión. Y es realmente, nosotros después también controlamos, que comentaron además, de los vertimientos industriales, la calidad de los vertimientos industriales, que es lo que tiene mayor carga contaminante de grasas o de otro tipo de contaminantes a las redes, que pueden tener un impacto negativo en la infraestructura a través de una dependencia nuestra que controla en coordinación con el gobierno nacional los influentes industriales. Ahí es donde realmente tenemos mayor proporción de contaminantes que atacan a la red, o sea, por su fluido, su químico o por grasa.
Obviously, that we find a higher rate of contaminants in this waste, and of course, this
con respecto a la tarifa de la bonificación, lo que hablaban nosotros
challenge for us.
social,
Well, regarding
y con
the
respecto
social benefits that we have, and also
a las multas por no pago, tenemos dos situaciones diferentes. Una es la multa por vertimiento a la vía pública, o sea, la persona que no está conectada, que pierde las aguas de la vía pública, eso está descentralizado en el tercer nivel de gobierno, y se realizan multas y sanciones, tal como decía Fabio, o sea, no es con un fin recaudatorio,
there are a lot of fines that are imposed, and the objective of these penalties is not to
el control barrial, ¿no?
raise
Porque
funds, but it's actually to try and correct these errors. And this will impact, of course, our system as a whole. And everything that is dumped in our streets, of course, is going to affect everything throughout our network. So we normally apply fines whenever there is a disposal that will impact the environment, and also we have fines whenever people dispose of their sewage in our other stormwater networks. We
Y con respecto al tercer punto que
normally
comentaba, la
monitor
tasa de
these
drenaje,
networks just so we can know
fue
the results
desarrollado
and
en
how
conjunto con la
everything is
tarifa y
impacting
es un
our
es una
systems.
tasa, no
Regarding
es
the
un
drainage
precio, es
fee,
una
it
tasa que
was
se paga
something that was
independientemente
also developed
del
in
uso
combination with
de
the
ningún
other
tipo de,
fees.
o sea,
It is a
independientemente, por
fee
ejemplo,
that
de la
is paid
impermeabilización,
regardless,
que sé que hay
independent of the use,
proyectos interesantes que
and
hemos evaluado para
in
tener una tarifa
specific
una tasa
situations. This
diferenciada de drenaje en
is
función de la impermeabilización.
important because it
Montevideo
is
hoy en día no
a
es así. La
different
tasa
fee that we
de
have
drenaje se paga en
implemented here
función
in
del costo
Montevideo.
de
The
catastro
drainage
del
fee
predio,
is
únicamente. Es
paid
una tasa un poco simple y nuestro primer intento de cobrar por
depending
este
on the
servicio de
location
drenaje.
of the
Sabemos que
building.
tenemos
It's
un
a very
desafío
simple system,
para proyectar algo
actually.
un poquito más eficiente, sobre todo considerando un poco la impermeabilización y la sustentabilidad ambiental, y estamos tratando de trabajar en por un Montevideo
Considering
más verde.
environmental
Es nuestro eslogan
sustainability, we
ahora,
are all
así que
implementing
esto de la tasa
this
va a suplir
fee
seguramente
so
algún
that
tipo
we can make sure that we can make up for that. And that's why we apply this fee across different households. Thank you, Maria. I think that you have clarified our questions, or maybe you have created new questions about the possibilities that we have. And we have a question here from Anastrava that says, that asks, when the homeowner generates excess surface runoff in using a collective system, should everybody pay or just this homeowner? So if a homeowner creates excess runoff, should everybody pay for the damage, or should this user be penalized himself? So I want Flavio Coutinho to talk about this. I understand that the homeowner is using the collective sewage system, right? So yeah, he's asking what the company would do in this case. Well, when we create the system, we normally connect the system of houses to our own system. This is a rule in our state, and I believe that in other sanitation companies the same happens. So as we start creating systems at different households, the homeowners need to be connected to our system. So that's the rule here in Pernambuco. And if they are not connected to your system, you have the convincing power, right? Fábio Basso already talked about what happens in Paraná, in Sanepar. Do you adopt the same policy? No, here in Pernambuco, we do not have enforcement powers, as Flavio mentioned, and in the case of Pernambuco specifically, we normally work together with the local government. We do not have enforcement power to fine some households, for example. Sometimes we can issue fines when somebody dumps oil in our system. In this case, we can apply some fines, and we can also sometimes work together with the local government whenever our clients have created major damage, because that's what is part of our legislation. Before passing the floor to Fábio from Sanepar, how does Compasa feel about individual systems? We know that they will still persist. I believe that we all know there is no way for us to have a network everywhere in Brazil. We know that we are talking here especially about urban areas mostly. So how can we reach within these individual systems a level of efficiency and quality that we are trying to reach for effluents coming from the sewage collection system? So I want to know first from Fábio and then Flavia, so that you can share your thoughts about this. This is actually a question asked by Mario Baggio here in our chat box. In areas where we have some difficulties to create connections or to collect sewage, or in areas where we have very small urbanization systems, of course we cannot apply this system, our system as a whole. And of course, everything is going to depend on the context. Sometimes we will not be able to implement the 99% and 100% of coverage to the population. In areas where the homeowners can connect to our system, we have to make sure that we implement that. And the environmental agencies, they demand that. And whenever they need to create sanctions, environmental agencies, they require homeowners to disconnect their individual systems. So they are forced to present reports on the quality of the effluents as well to environmental agencies. So whenever the environmental agency enforces this, these homeowners are forced to disconnect their individual systems. In rural areas, we know that we have a lot of individual systems there, and we have been working together with other institutions, providing a lot of technical support to different teams and also rural associations, so that they can better treat their sewage according to the standards of CONAMA. But we know that situations vary and they're different from one another. We know that when we're talking about populations with higher income, it wouldn't make sense for these individuals not to disconnect their systems. So Compasa works in these rural areas and in other settlements and also former slavery communities. And they help with the planning and with the projects and with the implementation of the infrastructure projects. And from what I understand, in the operational phase, they help in the creation of a management system, so to speak, or some kind of system in these different places. Here we have a very similar system to what we have in the state of Ceará. We have a system that provides technical support so that solutions can be built. But many of the actions and the management is done by rural communities. We support these communities given our history and given our experience, but Compesa will just provide the technical support, and consequently, we help with the implementation of some infrastructure projects. But normally, this is something that is under the mandate of the state, so Compesa will just be providing technical support. So there is an institutional arrangement that is behind the solution. Yes, there is. A new law will be implemented soon, and we believe that we will be expanding this solution throughout our state in a very objective manner. Fabio, please, can you make comments about the previous questions, and if you want to talk a little bit more about rural areas, please feel free to make whatever comments you deem appropriate. Well, that's great. Well, when I think about individual solutions, I see within our company a very large movement to rethink, if we can use this term, we are trying to really rethink our system here. We have gone through a very bad water crisis here in Paraná. I think it was the worst in the past 90 years, and now we have this new legal framework. So we are rethinking things. And when you think about individual solutions, it's another solution, another unconventional solution, similar to the ones that we have presented, both for rural areas where we have already been working together with municipalities with a specific methodology, and also with the participation of the municipality that helps our work. And I know that we will definitely need to advance in the area of wastewater collection. I know that we do need to take steps forward, and we also need to have a better business view here, a better business model. If you think about creating new networks, pumping systems, how long will it take for us to pay for all of this? Why can't we use an individual solution? I think that Solutrate is one solution that is around, and it has some individual solutions. Of course, these solutions, they respect technical standards, and maybe the service providers in partnership with municipal governments can have trucks, for example, collecting the sewage and taking it to treatment plants. So we need to find important alternatives, and we also need to have a better business model as well, because we know that our decisions will impact on the tariff, which many times is not easily paid by our society. So that's why we need to keep unconventional solutions under our radar. Thank you, Fabio. I don't have any further questions in the chat box, so I just have a remark here that I want to read because it was made by a dear friend, and I know that the Brazilians and the other panelists here know Carlo Alberto Rositio. He's just making a brief comment here, saying that cases like Compesa and Sanepar are very important. The case of Sabesp as well, which was mentioned in the experiences from Montevideo and Medellin. He says that the support of the IDB is very relevant, and I echo what he said. For us, it is a pleasure to see that the sanitation sector is now advancing due to this partnership, and see how much we are making progress in reaching universal access, and also reaching the population that does not have access to technology. And we know that there are still a lot of challenges for us to make everything happen. So now I am going to start our final remarks. I know that we are running late, and that was expected given the quality of our speakers today. I want to thank our international speakers who are here with us today. Maria Mena from Montevideo, Uruguay. A special thanks to Leon Yaps from Colombia, Medellin, and also Flavio Coutinho, Director of Compesa, and Fabio Bassa, Manager of the Metropolitan Region of Curitiba. And I am also very pleased with the presence of Alceu Bittencourt. And before I move on to my final remarks, I will pass the floor to Alceu. I'm very happy to have you all here because I have been working in the wastewater area for a long time, and I'm very happy to see these initiatives being present throughout the continent, and not only in Brazil and also in other Latin American countries. And I'm very glad to see that we are all concerned with including other people in the wastewater sector so that we can solve a lot of public health problems and infrastructure problems. I'm very glad to see that we are talking about the better use of water resources as well. So instead of focusing on a problem, we know that wastewater services, they are not a problem. They actually can be a solution. And water resources many times can be recovered and can benefit our population immensely. So now I will finish my remarks and I will pass the floor to President Alceu so that he can make his final comments. Thank you, Alexandre. This is a topic that interests me personally. I've been working in this area for a long time, and I'm very pleased with this session. I had mentioned during my initial remarks that universal access is very important. And when you're talking about universal access, we are talking about populations who can't pay for these services, and also talking about the services that we need to provide to rural areas. Given the size and characteristics of our continent, we have a great share of our population living in remote areas and areas that are hard to access. So solutions are not easy, and for a long time, we have just neglected this. So when ABES created Brazil Water Week, the intention was to really involve different stakeholders so that we could share our experiences and learn from our colleagues in Latin America and the Caribbean, where we find similar situations to ours. So once again, I would like to thank Ana and the IDB for supporting us in holding this session, and I would like to also thank you, Alexandre, for moderating this session. Thank you for all the questions that were also addressed here today. Everything has been very interesting. The discussion has been very interesting. I'd like to thank our speakers and the other organizations that helped us carry out this event. Thank you, everyone. Well, now on to the final announcement. I want to thank all our guests. It's been an honor to have all of you together in this special session. And I would like to thank especially all of our speakers of today. Alceu, the president of our association, the ABES, the president of ABES, the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering. I also want to thank Gustavo Mendez, who also is part of the Inter-American Development Bank and who has been supporting us for a long time. He has also helped us in the organization of this event. He put us in touch with the representatives from Medellin and Montevideo. I also want to thank Yuru as well, who is the manager of wastewater services in Colombia and Medellin. Thank you so much, Leon, for being here with us. Maria Mena, who is the technical coordinator of the sanitation division of Montevideo in Uruguay. I really enjoyed your talk. I'm an enthusiast of sanitation services, so I hope that you can implement the 6th sanitation plan that you have been planning. And we are still in the second phase. If we consider the Planasa was the first one, we have now the second one, the second sanitation plan, which has already been reviewed, and we are still trying to build our path. But thank you, Maria, for your experience. Thank you, Flavio Contino, Director of the Wastewater Utility Company in Pernambuco. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. And I also want to thank Fabio Basso, the General Manager of Metropolitana and in Curitiba, and also the wastewater utility company in Sanepar. I will also want to thank Sergio Vitor. Thank you so much for your participation. Everything has worked out well. So thank you so much. I would like to say that this video will be available on the YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel, and if you want to watch it again and if you want to share it, in addition to this, the other 5 special sessions that were held before this one, actually during this week, on ABES website, www.abes-dn.org.br, you can also find the agenda of our special sessions and the link to these sessions, and also the link to the Brazil Water Week. Brazil Water Week starts next week. It's going to start next Monday. It is the most important international event on water and wastewater services held in Brazil. And as I said, it will start on Monday and it will last till Friday, the 27th. It's going to be online, and it's going to be also broadcast on our exclusive interactive platform. You just need to go to the link that is posted in our chat for you to register to this event. We will have 5 days with 20 sessions with experts from Brazil and from other 19 countries. This event will be available to those registered for 90 days so that they can access it afterwards as well. And from the 29th of June to the 1st of July, we will have the 20th Silobeza, which is the Luso-Brazilian on sanitary and environmental engineering. We will be talking about water and sustainability and the challenges that we have in this area. You just need to go to the website. To learn more about this event, you just need to access the website that is in our chat box. And finally, join ABES, strengthen our sanitation sector. If you want to become a member of our association, all you need to do is to go to our website or click on the link that is in the chat box. Thank you all for being here with us today, and stay tuned. I'll see you on Monday.